Good evening, everyone present over here. I, Bhavin Rajendran, welcome you on behalf of D98 family. We build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence. Our today's session is Wednesday Wisdom. It's a regular educational session on varied interests and support to the club and members conducted on certain Wednesdays of the month, making life easier of XCOM and club. Our today's session is on evaluation, and for me, evaluation is being toughest part of the meeting, and I used to always run from that. You might also have certain stories about the evaluation. For today, we have distinguished Toastmaster Mario Rosario with us, who is the chartering member of Hyderabad Toastmasters Club in 2007, first ever community club in Hyderabad, chartering president of Toastmasters Club in Pune, Southeast in 2010, area director for Toastmaster year 2013 and 14, contestant in international speech contest, table topic contest, and evaluation speech contest at district level for a total of 6 times across D98, D41, and D89, and even in the district 60 at Toronto, Canada. Over to you, distinguished Toastmaster Mario Rosario.
Thank you, Bhavin. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Now, someone's mic is got this jarring sound. I'm not sure whose it is.
Yes,
if you can request everyone to go on mute. Okay, we are done. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a deck. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, so I know the topic mentioned is evaluate to motivate. There's a whole manual on that. I'm going to twist it a little bit. My topic is evaluation for champions. I'm going to focus a bit, not only on evaluations, but also on the competition, the evaluation competition. So there's going to be, it is generally a session on evaluation, but I'm going to add in some tidbits for the contest as well, right? Now, let me start with this. This is what we keep talking about when we say evaluation, right? The CRC method, which is commend, recommend, and commend, right? Just like this Subway sandwich you see out here, the two pieces of bread are commend, and what's in between is actually recommend. So it's surprising that the recommendations are actually the juicy part, and the commendations are actually the hard part, right? So from a speaking perspective, people like to be commended. But from the evaluation perspective, your juice is in the recommendation, right? So there's two ways of looking at it. The speaker loves to be commended, but as an evaluator, your juice comes in giving him the right recommendation. Of course, you have to comment. It goes without saying, right? But again, unless you wrap your recommendations between two slices of bread like this, it's not going to fly, right? Recommendations have to be wrapped in, right? I can't give you a sandwich. I can't give you a, just like this Subway, I just can't give you the salad and say eat, right? unless you're a health freak, you won't eat salad. You like it put between two slices of bread, right? So CRC, the recommendation goes between two layers of commendation, right? So that's how we generally do it. And I'll bring this topic up when we go through the dashboard again later on. Now, we're going to start with a few basic blunders which people make when they start doing evaluation, but when you start off, right? And I'm going to go back in time. When I first started doing evaluations in 2008-07, I remember going to this area conference in Chennai at that time, and there was a speaker, South Indian origin, had a very, very South Indian accent, which itself was funny. So a lot of people were laughing at the accent. And this is what I did. I just folded my hands and I just listened. It was a contest. I was an evaluator. I enjoyed the speech so much. And then when the time came to evaluate, I had to scramble, right? So rule number one, don't get lost in the moment. If you're evaluating, you always have to keep an eye on the pen and the paper. What am I catching, right? Don't get lost in the speech. It's the best speech. You can't be fully attentive there. You have to have presence of mind. Error number two, speak for yourself. Don't speak for the audience. I've heard many people make this mistake. The audience felt that your speech was funny. Don't say that. The speech, the evaluation comes from you. Do not assume that what the audience feels. This is your, can someone go on mute, please? I think there's some cross. Whoever that is.
Toastmaster Raja, if you could please mute yourself. Thank you.
Thank
I mean, you can go to that particular person and then mute.
Actually, I'm trying to do that, but it's not happening.
Okay, I'll continue. Thank you. Now, blunder number three, don't waste time with build-up. Another common blunder. I've seen people go up, evaluators go up and say, Mrs. So-and-so, today I will evaluate you on your content and your movement on stage, and I will also give you recommendations and I will summarize it, right? So an evaluation is 3.5 minutes. Do not waste 30 seconds telling them what you will do over the next 3.5 minutes, because that's your 30 seconds gone. Right? So don't waste time with telling them what you do. Jump straight into your evaluation. And from a contest perspective, summarize. I cannot tell you the number of times great evaluators have lost tournaments because they didn't summarize. But what is summarizing? To know what summarizing is, you need to know what the judging ballot is. So what is the judging ballot? The ballot in which, when you're in a contest, you'll be judged. So what is this judging ballot? Let's take a look at it, right? Next, we're going to see what the judging ballot is. Now, when you're evaluating someone in a contest, right, there are judges who have a ballot and they're going to judge how you evaluate. Now, this is a sneak peek into what that ballot is. Now, I'm just going to go to this very briefly. Few things I want you to know. Analytical quality is 40 points out of 100, right? How well you analyze. Now, this means whether you're analyzing what he did well, what he didn't do well, your entire analytical quality, 40 points. Recommendations, 30. If you do not give him any recommendations, that's a 0, right? That's a 0. Technique, 15, right? It's very, very important in Toastmasters to be sympathetic and motivational. That's CRC again, right? If you have a recommendation, you need to sandwich it, right? You don't throw it on his face. You did this wrong, right? You have to be sympathetic. You have to be motivational, right? And this is a good 15 points. Now, if you look at some of the evaluators who do well, you always notice the tone, right? The way they say it, the way they get their recommendations across. That's a good 15 points up here. And finally, the summary. You have to summarize, right? You have to summarize your entire feedback. Now, another blunder people make, to summarize, I think you did a very good job. That is not a summary. A summary is going over all the positive points you made and recommendations again. That is a proper summary. Not just saying, in summary, I think you did a great job, right? So bear in mind, that's a good 15 points. You lose if you do not summarize your evaluation at the end. So this is the ballot, and this is how you get, and this is how you'd be rated by judges, right? Now, evaluate what, right? So when I was approached to evaluate a decade ago or so, somebody said, oh no, you're not, now it's your time to start giving evaluations. And I said, what am I supposed to look for? I know people are speaking, they're great speakers, but what do I have to look, and how do I know that this person is doing something good and he's not doing something good? And what am I supposed to look for? What he's wearing, how he's saying it? I don't know. Nobody taught me this, right? So many people say, and a lot of people sometimes observe how other people do it and they try to do it the same. So I'm going to give you something today. I'm going to give you a dashboard. This is how I have done it in the past. I'm going to share this with you. Every time I start an evaluation, this is what I do. I have a piece of paper. Obviously, I'm showing it to you on a slide here. I have a piece of paper. I cut it into half. On the left, I list the pluses. On the right, I list the recommendations, right? So, okay. All right. So on the left, right? What's the first thing when somebody comes up? The opening, right? So I'm gonna study the moment the first thing which hits you when a speaker comes up is his opening. How is he opening? Is he grabbing your attention? Everybody knows the first 30 or 15 seconds is important to grab your attention. Is he asking you a question? Is he engaging the audience? Is he cracking a joke, right? What's he trying to do? What's the purpose of the speech? Do I know it from the beginning? No. Okay. How powerful is opening? That's what I want to see, right? Now, the speech goes on. While he is speaking, while the speech is going on, while I'm listening to him, I'm also checking a few things. What am I checking? Does his body have a clear structure? The speech body, right? Not his body. The speech body have a clear structure. Is he using any rhetorical devices, right? Is he going around? If he's presenting some facts, is it well researched? Is he telling a story, right? Whole bunch of stuff, right? I'm observing his structure. Now, I'm also looking at body language, right? How well is he using the stage? How well is his use of the stage? Hand gestures. Does he have stage points when he's moving around? I'm observing all these things. I'm also observing his vocal variety. Is he flat? Is he intonating his voice well? Is he giving those pauses? Is he monotonous? I'm checking all these things while he speaks. Also looking if he has any visual aids. Is he using any props, right? So on the left, I'm looking for what he's doing well, right? While he's speaking, I have my keen eye on this, watching him for either 4 to 6 minutes or 5 to 7 minutes. And while he's watching, I'm making notes on the side, right? I'm making notes. Oh, his opening seems to be good. I think he's moving on stage well. I'm making notes on what he's doing well on the left. Now, we know that there's a good 30 points for recommendations, right? On the right, I'm going to write my recommendations. Now, where do I get these recommendations for? A clue from what I put on the left. Because while I'm observing the points on the left, structure, body language, while I'm observing this, I also spot what his recommendations are. Ah, okay, fine. He's maybe moving too much. Maybe his movements are distracting, right? So I've been observing his body language. Now I've got a recommendation. Movements are too much. They are distracting. So I'm observing his positive points here, but now I got a recommendation. I'm going to write this on the right, right? I'm going to write this on the right. I observe the language he's using. I observe his structure. Then all of a sudden I notice, and I'm just giving you an example here. He's telling a story, but he's going back and forth too much. He's jumping to the past, the future, the past, and now I'm confused. I think the structure could need some improvement. I'm going to write that as point. Structure, speech may need to be structured in such a way that it becomes easier for me to follow the whole storyline, right? So now I got some recommendations. And how do I get the recommendations? By observing what he should have done well, but maybe fell back a little on. And finally, now that I have the positive points on the left and the recommendations here, I got my summary, right? So this is the dashboard I use, and I've used it over the last 10 years or so. Now it's either digital or I either use a piece of paper. And so this is how I know what to look for, what to spot, what he's doing well. And when he's not doing something well, I'm going to write on the right. So Everybody has got their own technique. I'm not telling you that this is the gospel, but this is what I use. You may find it helpful. Of course, if you have your own technique, please proceed and use that. All I'm doing is giving you a guideline, right? Now, later on in this session, we are going to do an exercise using this exact same dashboard. I'll come back to this then, right? But we are going to move on, right? Some of you may think that there are a lot of other points which you may add here. Go ahead. These are just the general ones which I've always used. Okay, now. I am going to tell you a few gotchas, right? So in my journey, I've noticed that there are few instances, I won't say people, instances where I've seen people evaluate in certain ways which I feel could be improved. Let me do that, right? So, for instance, there was this one evaluation contest where a speaker, right? So I'm going to ask you this question. So this is going to be a little bit of audience interaction here. So I'm going to ask a question. I'd like somebody to give a response. Either type it on chat or, yeah, type it on chat. Let me see if I can see the chat. Can I see the chat here? Yeah, I can see the chat. Let's need to move it up. Okay, now, the target speaker spoke about Socrates. Anybody knows what Socrates is? The Greek philosopher Socrates. Now, Socrates died in a very sad way. He administered poison. The target speaker spoke about Socrates' life, and it ended with Socrates' death. One of the evaluators went up and said, great story, we learned so much about Socrates, blah, 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 but you should have made the ending a little more happier. You should have made the ending a little more cheerful. Now, question to you. Was it a fair evaluation? Yeah, let's get some responses. If my voice is the only one heard, it becomes terribly boring. Okay, I've got one. Okay. Hopeful but happier. Yeah, very nice answer. It depends. If the story was real, then it shouldn't be skimmed. Absolutely. Facts and lessons learned are also fine, even if it's sad. That's reality. Correct, right? Right. So here's my take. Right. When a speech like this is given, the first thing I'd ask is, what is the whole purpose of the speech? Is it to, and there are 4 purposes: to inform, to persuade, to humor, and to motivate, right? This one was clearly to inform, right? To inform about a person. And if it's to inform, we can't change facts. We can't distort facts, right? And in this case, the ending had to be sad, right? So I cannot tell him or her to change we can't go back and rewrite history, right? So in this particular case, what I would have done is, what I would have said is probably, what was the event he was speaking at? Was it a happy event? Was it a social gathering? Was it a gathering where people were expecting to be motivated, to be lifted? Was it a keynote address? Then the whole mood comes into picture, right? So what I would have said is, how I would have gone is, every occasion has a different story, right? If I'm speaking an occasion where people expect to be uplifted, I don't expect something to be sad. I don't expect a sad ending, right? And if there is an ending which is sad, very importantly, there has to be a lesson which is profound. If the ending is sad, then there has to be a lesson which is equally profound. Otherwise, you're giving out history, and you may leave the audience in a very sad state, right? So if you're intending to leave the audience sad, at least add a lesson there. Otherwise, maybe in an occasion where people are looking for their spirits to be uplifted, I would have said maybe a more spirited or maybe a more meaningful or happier story for the occasion would have been the order, rather than something which is sad, right? So again, 15 points on how you say it. Telling a speaker to change his speech is very, very tough, right? They may take it the wrong way, right? Somebody's put in so much of time to go build this, and then you tell them, oh, we didn't like this, or give us something else. Why? Because we like to be entertained, right? Again, CRC. How you sandwich this in between the two is extremely important, right? So bear that in mind, right? Gotcha number 2. I hear this very, very often, very, very often. 2 months ago, somebody narrated an incident which happened in the office, in the workplace, where that person spoke about employee of theirs who was discriminated against and fought for her rights and got justice. And the evaluator came and said, I love the narration about that character you gave in your speech, how she fought, etc., blah, blah, blah. But I would have liked to hear your own personal story, right? So sometimes this becomes a formula for us. Everybody wants personal story, personal story, personal story. So what is your let me get some inputs here. What do you think is wrong with this? Is it wrong? Is it wrong? Let me get some inputs on the chat. Let me drag this away. Inputs on the chat. Considering as a recommendation, yes. If the evaluation is how did the story motivate you? What did you think it applied to your life? I think it's fine, right? Okay, so here's my take. Don't force everyone to tell their own personal stories. Everybody does not have personal stories all the time, right? Bear this in mind. In forcing people to tell their own stories, you're actually infringing upon their pride. So people feel that every time they have to tell their own personal stories. Storytelling is an art. It doesn't have to be your own. It could be made up as well, right? Now, put yourself in this speech I just gave you. This individual 2 months ago spoke about an event where her colleague had experienced discrimination in the office and fought for it and won. It was a story of personal achievement. And the evaluator told her that I'd like to hear your own personal story. Now just think, put yourself in the speaker's shoes. How will you interpret this feedback? Right? How, if I was a speaker, I will think, if I'm being asked to tell my own personal story, that means the story I told was not good enough, right? It's not good enough, which is unfair, right? Now, when do you comment? When do you ask people to tell personal stories? Number one, if you feel they've given a very long speech full of facts with no anecdotes, yes, at that time, we'd like to hear a personal story, right? If there's only long dialogues, and if you feel a personal story is needed, yes. But if that person is already telling a story, don't go on top of that and say, tell your own personal story, right? It does not come across too well, right? So bear this in mind when you're asking people to tell their own story. Okay, another gotcha. I've heard this so many times. 5 years ago, I was in a club and one of the speakers spoke really well. And the evaluator went up and said, Mrs. So-and-so, I noticed you were not making use of the stage. Get up and start moving. Get up, and this is what, get up and start moving, right? So I can't underline that this feedback should be given with a lot of thought, right? You cannot tell people to start moving around, right? The stage is to be used judiciously, right? You don't run, you don't walk. And most of all, I can even tell you, go back and listen to most of the powerful speakers you've heard. Barack Obama, in fact, one of the presidents in the club I serve, one of the past presidents in 2017, he used to stand in one place and give his presidential address, and everybody used to just be fixed on him. And guess what? Nobody ever dared to go and tell him you should move around, right? In the end, it is about engagement. If movement helps your engagement, great. If movement helps your connect, great. Telling people to use stage should not be used as a formula for feedback if people are not moving. I just like you to be aware of that. Stage theatrics are not mandatory. Here's my guideline. If you notice someone is fidgety, very nervous, right? Then you could recommend, as part of your recommendation, I think you appear a little nervous. I would recommend you use the stage mode to get your energy out, right? So judiciously not become a formula, right? These gotchas are to catch formulas which people use all the time. Another gotcha. Please add a little bit of humor in your speech. Great speech, loved your content, love this. Please add a little bit of humor in this. Now, I have a question here. What do you think about this feedback? Yeah. Let's hear some answers in the chat. Yeah. When do you give this? When do you give this feedback? Yeah, good. I'm getting some good points. It is not always necessary to have humor. Humor may not be relatable all the time, depends upon the speech. Correct, right? Emotional speech need not have humor, right? Yeah, speech can be informative. Now, here's my guideline. Humor is a powerful thing, right? And it's tough. It's tough. I've even heard people go, evaluators go, when speakers come up for their P1, and say add humor. Hey, the guy has just come up on stage and is full of nervousness and you're telling him to add humor? Be realistic. I mean, humor is not something you can, it's tough to add, right? Now, here's my suggestion. If you are an evaluator and if you're telling someone to add humor, now what has happened here? Show how it's done, right? Pick a part from a speech and say, and crack a joke, get them laughing at it. This is how you add humor, right? This is where you need to show how it's done, right? Don't say add humor. Anybody can come and say add humor. Since it's tough, you need to show them how it's done. If you're making a recommendation to add humor, try and crack a joke. At least try, attempt to crack a joke and see if it works, right? Because humor is tough. Another gotcha. Another big gotcha, right? Now we all know there is a role called grammarian, right? There are people who keep track of ahs and ums and the word of the day. And every now and then there are evaluators who obsess with grammar. I actually know a lot of them in my lifetime. Spent considerable amount of time there, right? I mean, they insist that speaking in the present, but you're using the past participle, and then your clauses were wrong, and then this was wrong, and that was wrong, and then even people who know English don't know what they're talking about, right? So it gets very confusing. Now, here is the problem. Many times there are people, a lot of people who, and I'm going to use not people who do not have English as their first language, because a lot of people in India do not have English as their mother tongue, but people who did not study in an English medium, English does not come naturally for them, struggle with accent, struggle with grammar, right? So sometimes this is a valid point, right? The grammar is not up to the mark, and sometimes it's not only the grammar, but even the evaluators notice. Now, question. How would you give this feedback? How would you give this feedback? Right? I'll give you a very valid concern. I mean, there's someone who has not come from an English medium school. He's learned it on his own, and he's delivering a speech. It's great, but grammar's all over the place. Now, how would you give this feedback? Yeah. Right. Use only if the mistake alters the meaning of the speech. Very rarely to be given as feedback. I agree. Okay, so here's my take. Grammar is given as feedback only if grammar is a showstopper. If it is a showstopper, right? So here's how I would do it. I think it was once I did this very awfully and I learned how to do it the right way. So how I do it is I'll tell the individual, I'm unable to comprehend your story because you've mixed up your tenses, right? If you're speaking in the past, if you're using past tense and present tense in such a way that I don't know whether you're speaking in the present or in the past, and I'm not sure whether the word you used here really means that, and therefore I'm not really getting the story, right? So you need to tie the incorrect usage of the grammar to the message, right? So if the speaker is convinced that his message is not coming across because of his inability to use grammar properly, then he gets the point, right? Then he gets the point. But if you go up and say, you should have used past participle and you use clause, you should have used this, that, then what does he feel? He feels I'm being penalized because I did not study English in an English school, right? So then the whole narrative should change, right? People who are not used to this should be, if grammar is an issue, why is it an issue? It's an issue because your message is being diluted because of incorrect use of grammar. That's what should go out, not the fact that you do not know grammar properly and therefore you're not welcome here. Sometimes the wrong message goes out, right? So somebody pointed it out, right? Sometimes incorrect grammar could alter the entire meaning, and this point should be brought out clearly, that the message is not coming out clearly because the grammar is not coming out. The incorrect grammar has been used. Again, it's how you say it, that 15 points, saying it with empathy is the 15 points which really matter. Let's see, we have another gotcha. Oh, this is the last gotcha, right? I have seen so many times, countless times, people just use these phrases. What an excellent speech. Fantastic, phenomenal, amazing, all these expressions, right? So now we need to motivate. We need to encourage. Of course, it's a sandwich method. The speaker should feel uplifted. You are not doing them any favor by sugarcoating or overcoating, right? I mean, I remember this 7 years ago in a club in actually Bangalore when I visited. Somebody came for his P1 and that person stood in front of a mic and he read out his speech and he read it out. And in fact, we could all see he was shivering because he was nervous reading it out. And he read through the speech. He didn't look up to the audience even once. He was looking down at his paper, reading through the mic. He finished. Everyone gave him an applause. He went back. Now, here's what his evaluator comes up and says. It was a fantastic speech. Excellent use of grammar. Excellent. And I was sitting there thinking, I mean, you cannot be more unfair to a speaker than to give him overcoated, sugary feedback, right? Now, you need to encourage, right? Now, here's how I would have done it. I would have said that is an excellent attempt, right? You need to be truthful, right? An attempt, right? In Toastmasters, we applaud attempts. Even if you fall down, we reach out, we pick you up, right? You have to applaud the attempt. You don't sugarcoat and believe that make people believe they're living in castles, right? So applaud the attempt and encourage, right? You are looking down, but even though and we've seen this happen so many times where people forget their speech, forget their words. Encourage. Never sugarcoat, never go overboard. Encouragement where it's due, right? I mean, the whole topic of this is we want people to come back on stage, right? After speaking, even if they mess up, we want them to come back on stage. And we do this by giving them proper feedback, not by sugarcoating. Oh, there's one more thing. You can't sugarcoat too much in today's generation. Gen Z, you can't do that. They'll call you out. If you go and say excellent speech, they look at you and say, no, that's excellent, right? You can't do too much of the sugarcoating now. People will actually call you. So bear this in mind. Feedback should be sincere and not sugarcoated. Now, just two more things. I'm going to point two evaluation techniques to you. Then I'm going to jump into the exercise. This is just for you to take it to the next level, right? Now, a lot of people, when they come on stage, they present, they say, we're going to use the CRC method. Here's what you did good. Here's where you can improve, and summary, and all the best for your next speech. So there's a standard template people use. Now, if you want to take it to the next level and excel in competitions, maybe win more ribbons, this is something you may want to focus on. Polishing your technique, right? Now, some people like using abbreviations, right? So, for instance, someone will come up and say, hey, Bhavin, I loved your speech. I'm going to give you feedback. Poise, P-O-I-S-E. P is, power. The word for you is power. Your speech was powerful. P-O-W-E-R. Power is for poise. I like the way you were stood on the stage. You presented power. You were the epitome of power, right? And O for oratory skills. The way you used English, the way you delivered, and W-O, that storytelling, that wonderful storytelling, how you weave the entire story, the visual imagery you brought out, and E, excellent use of language, grammar. But I have a recommendation, and that's when the R comes in. I was waiting for you to tickle my ribs, and therefore I thought maybe you should have cracked the joke, and then I could have been rolling on the floor with laughter, right? So a few people use abbreviations. I overdid it here, right? Power, they use words like power, and then persuasion, and then maybe ice, right? A bunch of words, right? I've seen people win competitions with this. It is not a must. In some cases, judges get impressed if you use techniques like this. Bear in mind, this takes you extra time. How much time do you have for evaluation? 3.5 minutes. What is the most important thing? Getting your evaluation right? So don't waste time trying to figure out, oh, P is for, or O is for, then you won't get your evaluation right. You'll get the abbreviation. Doesn't make sense, right? So to take it to the next level, you may want to think of a technique like this. It's not a must, but it's something which I've seen people do, right? Next one. Yeah. This is one of the most famous techniques I've seen people use, right? You see 3 objects here, right? 3 objects here. Anybody knows what these objects are doing here? Yeah, let's a question. What are these objects doing here? What are these objects telling you? What has this got to do with an evaluation technique? What is this fruitcake, an aeroplane, and what is that? Rasagula? Yeah, rasagula. What's this got to do? Yeah, anybody? What has this got to do with evaluation technique?
Many times speakers are just comparing with the pizza topping and the base like that, and how
perfect,
like that, and about that rasgulla like the sweet as a rasgulla like that. But personally, what I felt, that there is no relation between them. It's my personal view on that.
Thank you. Whoever said that, thank you. Thank you so much. So you're right? I've seen people use these metaphors, right? For instance, your speech was like a fruitcake, right? The crust was like the opening. I bit through the fruitcake, and even as my teeth went through, I tasted the raisins and the nuts, and your delivery was like as sweet as the raisins. The nuts were like the movement, and they equate each part of your speech to the ingredient in the cake, right? Now, I've seen people do that. I've seen people do that, right? The trick is to do this well. The trick is to do this well, right? I also once remember somebody said, your speech is like biting into a rasagula. Rasagula has many layers, and you bite in and then the juice comes out, right? So the juice around the rasagula was like the delivery. the crunchiness of the Rasagulla was like your movement on the stage and the vocal variety. So, the important thing is tying these two together should make sense, right? If you're just throwing this in just to show you have a metaphor there, it may not work, right? Once I even remember somebody said your speech was like flying in an airplane. When it began, the plane took off, and when it landed, the plane landed, and then your speech was smooth, just like the aircraft cruising at an altitude. But then I would like to point out some points of turbulence, right? That's how they equated. There were certain points in turbulence. Turbulent point number 1, and then you list the recommendations. So there are ways you can tie this up together, right? Now, people who want to make evaluation, who want to go after the trophy, they look at all these angles, right? So they know how to get all points. So now they start looking at things like this, okay, because this is one way people can stand out from the competition, right? Now, I'm not telling you here to do this, right? I'm just telling you here what the other feat the competition is. You may want to use these in your evaluations if you want to push yourself to the next level, or you may not even need to do that. Remember, this should not take away from the actual meat of the evaluation, right? I mean, you bring all these metaphors and then your evaluation is pathetic, it doesn't matter, right? You're giving bad recommendations, nobody's going to bother whether you have a fruit cake or gulab jamun. It's like evaluation stuff, right? So bear this in mind. Okay, last slide. Few things I'd like you people to know about the table topics contest. Where is that? Okay. Few things you need to know. Okay. Now, the target speaker speaks for 7 minutes, right? When the speech is done, 70% of your evaluation should be complete. Do not start evaluating in the 5 minutes, right? After the speech, you're given 5 minutes to write notes, right? I'm saying that when the speech is complete, 70% should be done. You should be just thinking of one recommendation. Most of it should be done, right? 3.5 minutes. 1 + 2 + 2 + 1. That's my rule. Opening is 1 point. 2 positive feedbacks, 2 recommendations, and a summary, right? This will get you home in 3.5 minutes with at least 15 seconds to spare, right? 2 of your strongest positives and strongest recommendations. There are many. You have to pick the strongest, right? And when you're 5 minutes, right? They'll give you 5 minutes. They'll say, you have 5 minutes to prepare your evaluation. You are entitled to ask them for a 1 minute reminder, right? Because this that's those 5 minutes will pass like an exam, right? And you know what happens in the exam, right? Suddenly the invigilator will say, stop writing, and then you'll have to give your papers, right? So you can tell them, I want a 1 minute reminder at the phone, right? Now, whether you use notes or not in your speech, in your evaluation, some people would like to use notes, some people don't. It's up to you. If the evaluation comes out well, that's all what's getting you points. A lot of people like to go up without giving notes, right? And that's fine, but the focus is on the evaluation. Now, I'm going to close with this first speaker bias. A lot of people feel that in a tournament, the first speaker is at a disadvantage because after 5 minutes, he immediately has to stand up and present. The other people are put into a waiting room, so they have more time to actually rehearse on their head and come out and give better. People feel that this is a bias. We can't change this bias. We can't, right? Having said that, I've seen people in Mumbai at district levels be the first speaker and win, right? So there is a bias, but it's been broken, right? So these are a few things like you know about the contest. And now let's go and do this exercise. Now, before we're going to watch a YouTube video, right? A very interesting YouTube video. I think we have 15 minutes time. Bhavin, can you confirm? We have, how much time do I have?
We also need to take the Q&A session.
So tell me, how much time do I have?
So you're about time now.
I'm about time. Okay, so we don't get to do this. Quite sad.
Yes.
I would have loved to do this, but Okay, so if we can't do this, then we're going to have to take the Q&A. We'll skip to that.
Yes.
Okay, I'm open to Q&A.
So this stage is open now. If you could please raise your hand if you have any questions.
What to do?
Okay, so members are requesting they want to do the demo. Maybe we could lead with that.
Okay. The demo is there's going to be a 7-minute video, right, where we all watch, and we're going to look at that deck I presented, and collectively we'll take like a few minutes, and we will collect feedback. We'll fill that whole deck, and we'll come up with an evaluation. So it will take between 7.5 to 5 minutes, 12 minutes more. Are we okay with that? Block 15. Are we okay with that? Is everyone okay with 15 minutes? It will take that much. Bhavin, I think you need to give the go ahead.
Okay, sir. I see lots of thumbs up here.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to just go up and pull this. Let me stop sharing my screen. I'm going to get this other link up. Okay, this is a video of one of my club members giving his P1. Just so you know, I took his permission before giving his P1, and he has graciously allowed. Of course, some of you may recognize him. So I'm just going to share. So I'm going to first, let me just get this off, share my screen, and new share. Okay, this is the share. It's called the Destiny. It's called the Destiny. All right. So this is a great speech because it's someone's opening journey. Toastmasters, a very good friend of mine who's now an amazing speaker. But it's interesting to see how people open their account. So I'm going to test and see whether if I share this, can you hear the volume? Let me just.
No, Mario, actually, we're able to see the screen only wherein the exercise and the link is being there. I think you shared a tab. Can you share your screen?
Okay. Stop share. Hold on. Let me share this again. Share. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm doing screen share. Can you see?
Yes. Now.
Okay. Now.
Yes.
I'm going to play this. Here's a problem. Sometimes the audio may not play across. It means I may hear it, you may not hear it. So Zoom Master, I may need your help. There's a setting change I may have to make for this. I'm not sure. Let me try this. Can you hear it?
No, we can't hear
Could
it.
you hear that?
So, Mario, while you are sharing the screen, so once you click that share screen button, there's a select audio, share audio button also.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, you'll have to enable that.
More. Share sound. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Destiny, Toastmaster.
Can you hear now?
Yes.
Yes, now we are able to.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Toastmaster of the Day, distinguished Toastmasters, my mentor and Toastmaster. Thank you for this opportunity. Destiny. Everyone has a debate about destiny. Is it something in your hands? Can you control it? I don't think so. I'll tell you why, and I'll give you a story, and you decide. Let's journey back. The year is 1987. Dr. K.S. Subramanian, ex-army captain, is nonchalantly walking into office this fine morning. He's taking a side door because he never uses the lift near the main entrance. He takes a side door and walks up the stairs. He reaches the office. It's 9 in the morning and the office is locked. He looks left, he looks right. He has a mental note that he's going to fire the security guard the moment he sees him. It's not unusual for him to be early to office. So the security guard has very kindly given him some keys. He comes in, opens the door, walks inside. While he's walking inside, he also notes that there is no one outside the office waiting to be let inside. And he decides that not just the security guard, the entire workforce needs to be reprimanded for punctuality. Goes inside, sits at his desk, starts working. At about 9:12 a.m., after he does his first 10 minutes of work, he walks to the water cooler, pours himself a glass of water, looks around at the entire floor. There's no one in office. Now he's pissed. Now he's very close to murder. Now, it's very important to note he's very close to murder. Keep this in your mind. He goes back to his desk very angrily, sits down, and feels something near his feet. Let's pause here. Let's take a dramatic pause here. And let's not journey back too far. Let's come a little backwards. Naveen Tambe is a security guard at this company. He came in at 8:30 a.m. that day because he was too scared of being reprimanded. He came in, unlocked the door, and was sitting outside ready. At 8:45, employees came in. They were also going in. They were too scared to be reprimanded. At 8:48, they were all in a lift running downstairs. Naveen Tambe grabbing a phone and saying, Sahib, send somebody urgently. There is a king cobra in the office. I have taken everybody out. We are standing at the main gate. I'm not letting anybody come in from the main gate. There's a king cobra in the office. Let's journey forward. You remember he felt something near his legs? Dr. K.S. Subramanian, ex-army captain, picked up one end of it, picked up the other end of it, walked to a window, and threw it out. That's what he did. Remember the title of my speech? Destiny. What does this have to do with my destiny? I'll tell you. Dr. K.S. Subramanian could have stopped right there. Instead, he came home to his Orthodox Hindu mother, who is waiting for her grandchild to arrive, and told her that I killed a snake in India. As you can see, in my family, people take their problems in their own hands. My grandmother, the moment I was born, ran to my birth certificate and wrote bold headlines, Nageswaran. It gets better or worse. She didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew about this. For 3 years of my life, I was called Sandeep because nobody knew that that's what my birth certificate said. At Montessori, it came out. It still gets worse. We found out that that name is unlucky for me. I was so lucky so far, right? So they decided, you know how people add a K or an extra R or an extra A or a U in their name, right? I added more people. My name became Krishnaswamy Siva Subramanian Nageswaran Iyer. I used to walk into a room and people would look around expecting more people. I love motorcycling. I bought my first motorcycle with my own hard-earned money. Have you guys seen an RC card in a motorcycle? Mine's an RC book because the first page is just my name. Do you guys like debates? I used to love debates. But do you know how frustrating it is when you lose 3 minutes of your time just telling people what your name is? Once I got married, once I got my baby daughter, well, before I got my baby daughter, when we finally got to write our name in the passport, I realized, let me also start taking my problems in my own hands. So here is hope for you. Destiny may give you some nice stuff. You can take control of it a little bit. Hence today, I stand before you. I'm completely abbreviating those names and just adding 2 initials now, a TM. I'm Krishna Subramanian. Thank you.
Book your
Okay. First of all, thanks to Krishna for allowing me to share that. We'll talk about the speech, later, but now let's In case you haven't been doing that, the whole exercise was to observe the speech and to, let me get to that point, the dashboard. Right, so this is what we're going to do now. This, the exercise we're going to do now, right? So have you been writing? Because I've been writing, right? So let's do this, right? So all of you have heard the speech. So let's make this like an interactive session, right? So what did you think about the opening? Yeah, I want to hear some things on the chat about the opening. Let's start with the opening. What was special about the opening? Anyone remembers? Destiny, right? That's how Krishna started. Destiny, right? Stress on the word destiny. Was it grabbing? What is attention grabbing? Question. Ponder over it. Someone says destiny. Is it attention grabbing? So here's another clue for you. A lot of people will say yes. For you to be a good evaluator, you should find a better suggestion where people will say, oh yeah, what you're saying is right. That's actually better, right? Well, that's actually better, right? So the opening, he began with destiny, right? Which is, he used a lot of energy and he clearly got your attention. My question was a better way to do that, right? I'll come to that later. Let's leave it there. Purpose of the speech. It was his growing up story, how he got his name. Not really his icebreaker, right? It was more, it was informative, right? Now, let's come to the structure, right? Was the speech structured well? Was it structured well? What was the structure like? Now, let's go point by point, right? Let's go point. Was it structured well? It was, right? What were the strengths? Yeah, let's talk. What were the strengths in the body of his speech? What were the strengths? What did Krishna do well today? By looking at the structure, body language, vocal variety, and visual aids. Among these four, what do you think were Krishna's strengths today? Among these four: structure, body language, vocal variety, visual. Yeah, just throw me out some things. Body language with visual aids, use of props. He used that prop, right? And you notice the prop use reflected that of a snake, right? Notice he went the extra mile to get a prop which could mimic the use of the stage. He used also the prop at the end, right? Imagery storytelling. Now, what imagery do you remember from the story? What imagery do you remember? Important. What imagery do you remember? Give me some point. So imagery is powerful if you can recollect. Water cooler, thank you, right? Lift, water cooler, stepping on something, key, secret. So these are the key things which you'll remember. The snake, of course, right? So when you give the feedback, your imagery is powerful, you also quote the instances which you remember, right? So that adds to the evaluation because you're just not saying powerful imagery, you're mentioning instances which were powerful, right? Was this structure okay? Did it have a flow? Was there a flow? Was there a flow? Was there a flow? Was there a flow? It was good, but was there a flow? Initially, no, but could you get where it began? It began with him. It began with his great-grandfather going to the office, right? And then something happened in the office. He came back home, and then that's where Krishna comes in, right? That's where Krishna comes in. The whole name comes in, and then it ends with his daughter. So it's from grandfather to granddaughter. It's across how many generations? 4. So Krishna took you on a journey from 4 generations, if you actually look, right? So there was a flow, right? Yeah, so okay, good point. Structure was uncooked, in my opinion. King Cobra wasn't put much weight. So the whole point, and I'll come to that point. The whole King Cobra, the whole purpose of the King Cobra was just to give Krishna his long name. Is to give Krishna his long name, right? The Naga, the Cobra. So that's why the King Cobra came. So this all goes to storytelling, right? So storytelling, if I would point it out, I would say one of the big positives of this speech is the way the story was told, the ingredients brought in between, the different actors, the different actors which were thrown in, the different components brought. The storytelling was great. Now, the body language was also good. This was the time of the pandemic. The lighting may not have been perfect, right? But as much as he could, he used body language. Vocal variety. Notice anytime he mimicked anyone, remember he mimicked that watchman. He mimicked that watchman speaking in Hindi to him, going down the elevator. Once he did some mimicry, right? The vocal variety was okay, decent. Visual props, decent. Now, recommendations. Great speech, great speech. Great speeches are tough to find recommendations, which is why I picked a speech. So easy speech is easy to find. Good speeches are tough to find recommendations. Now, what recommendations would you give? Yeah, what recommendations? This thing, right? So we need to look at the left and see where the gaps are, and then find the recommendation on the right. What are the gaps I found while doing this? And that's going to give me a recommendation. So remember, I told you this. So again, this is my opinion. Everybody's opinion on recommendations would be different. Here's what I would have said. Krishna, you gave a great speech. Your opening could have been even better. Destiny is a great way to start. If I was you, I would have started with the phrase, I killed a snake. How powerful is that? I killed the snake. 50 years ago in an office, my grandfather walked into the fourth floor and killed a snake. You kill a snake, people would stop and listen. And that, my friends, is partially how I got my name. I got a part of my name, right? Now, this, in my opinion, is a much more riveting and pulling beginning rather than just saying destiny, right? So again, I'm not telling it in the way it should be told because Krishna's a good friend of mine, but how I would say it is, if I had a chance to open, I would have chosen the most powerful part of the speech, which is a snake, and I would have put that right in the opening and said, I killed a snake. My grandfather killed a snake 50 years ago, and that, my friends, is partly how I got my name. Here's what happened, and then I'll begin my. That's how I would have pulled my opening up to a different level, right? So recommendations are, if a person is opening, you give them recommendations to improve. If the person is already good, your recommendations take him to the next level, right? Now, what are the other recommendations you can think of? Oh, this is something I didn't catch. Yeah, so we have identified the grammar Nazi to be Ranjani Rao. A ribbon for her, please. So Ranjani, I'll say this because I know her very well. Yeah, so reprimanded used 4 times. So I'll again go back to my rule. Grammar is wrought up if it is a so point, or unless it is very, very noticeable. Unless it's very, very noticeable. I didn't notice it. Krishna probably used reprimanded 4 times. Unless it is an eyesore or really aching at you, don't really bring it up. Otherwise, right. But it's good that you brought that up. Let's see. Lower pace. Yeah, could have slowed down. Remove reaction. Okay. So here's what else I would have said. So Krishna, somewhere in the middle of your speech, you use the phrase journey forward and journey backward, right? So when you're telling a story, when you say journey backward and journey forward, you're pulling the transition back and forth, right? So instead of saying, so when you use journey backward, here's what you said. When your grandfather felt something in his feet, you said, let's journey backward. Right? So instead of that, you could have said earlier on in the day at 8 in the morning, the watchman came to office, everybody came to office. And then later on, you said, now let's journey forward. Instead of that, you could have said, and that is how And that is what the soft thing my grandfather stepped on. That was actually the cobra which the watchman was warning us about, right? So instead of saying journey forward and journey back, which seems to be rather cinematic in in use, and may so when you say journey forward and journey backwards, sometimes I think I'm going back in time and coming, but you're really not. It's just 1 or 2 days earlier in the same day. So instead of using journey forward or back, I would have said earlier on the day and connected the timeline a lot more easier, right? Because again, this is just my opinion. You could have a totally different opinion. So these are the 2 recommendations I would have used. Now, interestingly, I want to see what the other recommendations other people have, which I may have missed. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, Amit's been giving some really good points, right? He said murder, keep it in mind, and didn't bring it back. Oh, really good. So I didn't catch this. Amit, very good catch, right? You said I would he spelled murder. So good point. So very good point. So tying up the circle, right? So this is another thing you look for as an evaluator. Did he leave a hanging thread somewhere? Has he not tied it up? Right? So if he's not tied it up, that's how it needs to be tied up. Okay, so these are the 3 points, right? So if you were to ask me, good opening, storytelling was great, body language was also good. Recommendations, the 2 recommendations I gave, and when summarizing, you have to summarize the 2 strongest points and the 2 recommendations along with the summary. All right, so this is how I would have done it. Of course, you can rehearse on your own by watching the speech again and have your own takeaways too. Okay, thank you so much. I think we've already stretched time 5 minutes more than what we have. Thank you so much, all of you, and Bhavin, for letting me go over time. I'm guessing this covers Q&A too, so I'm done. Back now to you.
Thank you so much. I want to take this moment to express my sincere gratitude for this insightful and thought-provoking session. I believe everyone who attended Evaluate to Motivate will have lasting impact from today's session. I also want to extend my gratitude to all the participants who took their time from their busy schedule as it was a weekday. Lastly, I want to remind you that Wednesday Wisdom is to provide regular educational session on varied interests and support to the club and members. It's an ongoing effort and it requires all of our continued dedication, commitment. I encourage you all to take what you have learned today and apply it to your club meetings and lives. Thank you, sir, once again. And until next time, with the new session, we will meet once again. And thank you from on behalf of District 98. Let's have a quick screenshot. Everyone, if you could please turn on their cameras.